Okay. Okay, I'll just go back to the previous slide. Let me just see what I have covered. Did I cover this slide? Were you able to see this one just now?
No, Prabhu.
No, huh? Okay.
No. Further, Prabhu.
This one?
No, Prabhu.
Oh, this one?
No.
This also no.
Yeah.
No.
This one?
Yes.
No, Prabhu.
No also.
Yeah.
Yes.
This one?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So therefore, yeah. So I was saying how the queens were receiving the Lord directly, and after receiving the Lord was spending time with the queens. And although Lord Sri Krishna was constantly by their sides, as well as exclusively alone. So what the Lord did, the Lord was, Prabhupada describes, the Lord was acting just like a hand-packed husband. So a hand-packed husband, will be always with the wife, always taking care. So the Lord was doing like that. He was, by his mercy, because these queens have completely surrendered to him, the Lord also gave them his full attention. So in this way, he was like the perfect husband. He was attending to each and every one of their needs, being with them at every single time. And he could do it because he's the Supreme Lord. So we were talking about the perfect relationship, right? In the material world, relationships are not perfect, whereas in the spiritual world, the relationships are perfect. So the Lord was showing such perfect relationship with the queens of Dwaraka. So like that, every single time he was with them. So even though he was with them at every single time, still, tatapi, the queens of Dwaraka, they felt like his feet appeared to them to be newer and newer. So remember, earlier we were talking about how the feet of the Lord is the focus of the pure devotees. So the queens of Dwaraka were always gazing at the feet of the Lord. Even though they were at such a position, they never tired of seeing the feet of the Lord. It was becoming newer and newer to them. So this is just like, we were saying what we were saying. We were saying about how the consciousness of a pure devotee. We were talking about the song, the bhajan, which Prabhupada described earlier, like the bee of the mind. The mind is like the bee, and the bee is always going after the honey. So the honey is the lotus feet of the Lord. Simply by serving the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord, when someone falls at the feet of someone, let's say a wife falls at the feet of a husband, or the child falls at the feet of the parents, what will happen? When someone falls at the feet to take Asirvad, what will happen? That person will raise the person up, right? When the wife takes blessings from the feet of the husband, the husband will go and raise the wife up by the chin, right? Very, very nicely they will raise up. So in this way, when we take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, we don't have to think about anything else. We don't have to think about I would like to be in this position. I would like to be like this. I would like to be like that. We can cherish such hearts in our heart if we like. But in our current stage, devotional service, currently, we have two types of devotional service, Vaidhi Bhakti and Bhava Bhakti. So Bhava Bhakti is much later when we are already liberated. But in our current stage, we follow Vaidhi Bhakti, Bhakti in rules and regulations. So we simply focus in serving the lotus feet of the Lord, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. So in this way, we will gradually be lifted, just like the Lord lifts a person up who has fallen. So holding us by the chin, the Lord will lift us up and place us in the right position according to our desire in our heart, in the way that we want to serve the Lord. So the Lord will do that. So we don't have to think separately. We simply have to focus on the lotus feet of the Lord. Just like the queens. The queens are only remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, and the Lord is so purchased by them that he completely dedicates himself to become their perfect hand-packed husband. Always be with them and everything, right? So this is the beauty of the relationship of the Lord, constantly by their side. So we have an example. The example is Lakshmi Devi herself. So Lakshmi Devi is called Shri. So the verse continues. Shri, Lakshmi, although by nature always restless and moving, could not quit the Lord's feet. So Lakshmi Devi is Chanchala. The word for Lakshmi is Chanchala, another name, right? And Chanchala, because she's called Chanchala, Chanchala means she cannot stay in one place for long, very short period. So that's the nature of money also, isn't it? Fortune. In one's life, fortune never remains always. You know, it comes, sometimes we are rich, sometimes we become not so rich, sometimes fortune is nice, sometimes we get bonus, sometimes we don't get bonus, sometimes our bank balance is large, sometimes our bank balance is not. So, you know, in the same way, money is always never stuck in one place. In the world, you know, even in banks, right, money is always changing. There's always transactions going on. Every moment, every second, in every parts of the world, transactions of money is always going. Money is moving from one place to another, to another, to another, to another. It keeps changing hands. It never stays. And Lakshmi is having that nature. But when it comes to the lotus feet of the Lord, she becomes stuck. She's attached and cannot quit the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is Lakshmi Devi. So therefore the verse continues. So what woman can be detached from those feet, having once taken shelter of them? If Lakshmi Devi herself cannot be detached from the feet of Lord Krishna or Vishnu, right? What woman can be detached from those feet, having once taken shelter of them? So therefore, this is the perfection of life, whether we are male or female, right? We should take full shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So here there's an interesting statement. Prabhupada says, the living beings are by constitution feminine by nature. So this is an interesting statement. So Jiva, the Jivas, all the souls, the Jivatma are all by constitution feminine by nature. So this may come as a blow for all, some of the males or whatever. But this is Tattva. Why it's feminine by nature? It's feminine by nature because the Lord is surrounded and served by his energies. Shakti. Shakti is by nature feminine. The Lord is known as Purusha. Purusha is male, right? And Shakti is female. And we are Jivatmas. Jiva is actually part and parcel of the Lord. It's part of the Shakti of the Lord also. So because we are part of the Shakti of the Lord, therefore we are female, right? But for the satisfaction of the Lord, though we are female in nature, in constitution, right? Because we are to serve the Supreme, right? We serve the Purusha, therefore we are female. But for the satisfaction or for the purpose of the Leela or the pastimes of the Lord, we can take any form. We can become humans, we can become male, we can become female, right? So therefore Krishna has Vasudeva, father. Krishna has, friends like Sudama. He has friends like he has friends like Uddhava. They are all male body, right? Even though the nature of the constitution of the soul is female. So in order to better understand this concept of the nature of the energy of the Lord, right? I thought I will just spend the next few slides to talk about that a little bit before we stop. It's already 9:30. Some more about 6 more verses. But probably, okay, let me just go through this quickly and then we can stop. So to make it simple to understand, we can understand that the Lord is supreme, right? He doesn't do anything. The Lord is just enjoyer. The Lord's job is to enjoy. The Lord doesn't have a job. Because if God has a job, then he cannot be God. He's a servant. So God doesn't have job. He doesn't have any work. He doesn't have anything to do. His job is only to enjoy. That's why it's called Purusha, the enjoyer. So who does all the work? All the work of creation, all the work of everything, maintain everything. He is surrounded by Sahasra Lakshmis. He is surrounded by Sahasra Shaktis. So the Lord is Bhagavan Parameshwara. He is the possessor of all energies, Shakti. All Shaktis are surrounding him and they are serving him. So there are millions and millions and millions of Shaktis. So we cannot differentiate. We cannot, there are just too many Shaktis of serving the Lord. But still, we can categorize them into two categories. One category of Shakti is called material Shakti or Bahiranga Shakti. External. Bahiranga means external Shakti. And this Shakti, by nature, is the definition of this Shakti. It doesn't have consciousness. It is what you call dead matter, right? Not dead as in dead, but it doesn't have consciousness. Example, this Shakti comprises of elements like earth, water, air, fire, ether, elements. Right? They don't have consciousness. So in this way, they comprise the creation of the universe. The elements create the universe. And the nature of this Bahiranga Shakti is the three modes of nature. Nature, Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, which is constantly in flux, always changing. So this is the nature of the material Shakti, which creates the universe. And this Shakti, because it's external, the Lord doesn't directly associate with this Shakti. He incarnates himself as Kala, as time. Bhagavad Gita says, right, Krishna, I am time. So his time is an incarnation of the Lord. So in this way, he controls the Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, in the material world. Now, there is another Shakti. This category of Shakti, another category of Shakti. This is called Antaranga Shakti or spiritual energy, internal energy. So this Shakti is different predominantly from Bahiranga Shakti by consciousness. Antaranga Shakti has consciousness, material energy doesn't have consciousness. So that's the primary difference. Oops. Okay, so that's the primary difference. So, and in this Shakti, there are also different categories. Under the spiritual energy, there is also several categories. The main category is called Swarupa Shakti. Swarupa Shakti is directly Shakti which is in direct control of the Lord. So what is this Swarupa Shakti? Swarupa Shakti comprises of Chit, Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat means eternal. It's another name for that Shakti is Sandhini Shakti. Sandhini Shakti is it's looked after by Balaram. Balaram looks after Shanti. We won't go into the details of this today, right? I'm just basically telling we have all these different Sandhini, which is about eternality. The eternal nature of the spiritual world is Sat Shakti. The consciousness of the spiritual world is called Chit Shakti. Everything in the spiritual world has consciousness. So this is Chit. And therefore, because of that, Krishna can understand the heart of every living entity because of this Chit Shakti. And Krishna is also always in bliss, Ananda. So this is Ananda Shakti, looked after by, technically it's Hladini Shakti, which is looking after this potency of Ananda, which is looked after by Radharani. So all these three is called Swarupa Shakti, directly under the purview of Krishna. So just now we talked about Antaranga Shakti and Bahiranga Shakti. So Antaranga Shakti is the direct internal energy of the Lord, and the shadow of this Antaranga Shakti is Bahiranga Shakti, the material energy. So that's why I say material energy has no consciousness. Does a shadow have consciousness? Does a shadow have independence? The shadow simply follows the object, right? Wherever the object goes and the source of light, the shadow simply follows. So therefore, in this way, Bahiranga Shakti has no consciousness, whereas Antaranga Shakti is the object, right? Is the actual Shakti. So besides this, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy, which is this Antaranga Shakti, of which comprises the living entities. So the Jiva is also part of the Antaranga Shakti, spiritual energy. It is also part of the spiritual energy, not material energy. That's why Jiva is spiritual. That's why Jiva has consciousness. So Prabhupada says, the living beings are designated as para prakriti. So that prakriti means energy. Two types of prakriti, para and apara. Para means superior, apara means inferior. So Bahiranga Shakti is inferior, material energy is inferior, spiritual energy is para, and the Jiva is part of that para. Para prakriti. Jiva is part of that para prakriti. Right? Material elements is apara. Okay, how to understand this? So the living entity in this conditioned world, Bhagavad Gita 15.7 also says, the living entity is also part and parcel, fragmental parts. Amsa, the word amsa is used, fragment. So Jiva is a fragment of Antaranga Shakti, of the spiritual energy. It is not a whole Shakti by itself, like Sandini or Samved or Hladini, which is part of Swarupa Shakti. It is a fragment of the Antarang, of the Chit Shakti, basically. So just like, you know, when light goes through a trapezoid crystal like this, what happens to that light? It becomes fragmented into colors like rainbow, right? When a white light passes through this crystal, it becomes various colors of the rainbow. So we can see the different, like how I told you, spiritual energy, there are many types of energy, right? One of the fragment of that energy is the Jivatma. So the Jivatma is also spiritual energy, but it is just a small fragment of that entirety of the spiritual energy. So therefore, the Antaranga Shakti casts the shadow. The shadow of the spiritual energy is the material energy which creates the universe, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. And a fragment of the spiritual energy is the Jiva. And this Jiva is called Tatashta Shakti. Tatashta means in between. It's in between the Antaranga, the spiritual energy, and in between the material. It's part of the spiritual energy. It's a fragment. Because it's a small fragment coming from the spiritual energy, it can be overwhelmed by either spiritual energy or material energy. It cannot remain in between on its own. It will be overwhelmed by either spiritual energy or material energy, either one. It cannot remain in between forever. So therefore, it's called Tatashta. Tatashta means in between. Neither here, neither there, in between. Right? But it originates from the Antaranga Shakti. That's why it's called spiritual. So the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam reinforces this point. O most intelligent Uddhava, the living entity called Jiva is part and parcel of me. Mama Amsa. Again, the word Amsa, fragment, is used. So therefore, it's part of this, right? So in the next session, we will talk a little bit more about this. We will repeat this a little and we will explain a little bit deeper about this point. So today, now it's already 9:40. I should stop here. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. If there are any questions, we are happy to look at the questions. Otherwise, if you can also put it in your chat. You can also put it in the WhatsApp. We're happy to look at it. So I was hoping to finish this top chapter, but due to the interruption just now, so we couldn't really finish it. Just a few more verses actually only. But never mind. I will try to go through those parts in the next session, and then we can move on to chapter 12. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Yes.
Prabhu, could you just elaborate a little bit on the Jiva Shakti?
Mm. So, yeah, that's what I was going to do. Okay, so why don't I save that for you, Prabhu, in the next session? If you have any specific questions, you let me know. I will address all of that together. So next session, we will talk more about the Jiva Shakti. It's a little
Okay,
technical.
Prabhu. Okay.
What I covered today is that. So maybe you go through what I just went through today in this part, and I will finish this in the next session.
Okay, Prabhu. No problem. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So anyway, I was hoping to end this with the remembrance of Lord Krishna. So we had nice descriptions of Lord Krishna being received by the queens, being received by the mother, and we heard many wonderful characteristics of the nature of the etiquette, the spiritual etiquette, the Vedic culture, which is very important for us to imbibe also in our hearts, because that's the culture of the spiritual world. If we are not thinking in the culture of the spiritual world, if we cannot accept the culture of the spiritual world, we cannot really stay in the spiritual world, right? So therefore, it's the Srimad Bhagavatam is very beautiful. It talks about many things. It talks about philosophy. It helps us to understand the concepts of the material world, the spiritual world. It also, together with it, gives us the culture of the spiritual world. So simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, guaranteed, Prabhupada guarantees our heart will be transformed at the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam recitations, and we will see Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So hopefully we will get there one day with all your blessings. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama,
Hare Hare.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu,
Thank
Hare Krishna. Thank
you
you,
very
Prabhu.
much, Prabhu.
Happy New Year also. Hare
Thank you, Prabhu.